Fox Sports.
We are Black Horse. We are MC.
Royals baseball on an autumn-like evening in Chicago. It's game 2 between the Royals and the White Sox. The Sox took game 1 last night, 7-2. Royals baseball is presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the ballpark with Rex Hudler. I'm Ryan Lefevre. The Royals were on quite a tear offensively. They had a stretch of 10 games. They're scoring almost 7 runs per game. Without Salvador Perez last night, the Royals were held to 2 runs.
Yeah, now I'm not going to put it all on Salvy's big shoulders, but the Royals offense was swinging in a lot of air. The kid Rodon was really good, but they're going to have to change their ways. Now, this is one of the reasons why Salvy was out. I mean, thankfully, it was only a bruise, no break. No issues there. But unfortunately, it's not the same thing for Lorenzo Cain.
Yeah, Lorenzo Cain back in the lineup last night, not in there tonight. And we could see with his very first swing that it was going to be a difficult night for him.
I mean, didn't even have his balance. And, you know, you could just tell by the way his swings were. And I haven't seen that, Ryan, ever. Because most of the time you take swings before the game and you go and tell your manager, look, I can't play. But Lorenzo, credit to him. He wanted to play. He's a tough guy, gutsy performer. But it's not going to work if you don't have your hands healthy.
Tonight, the Royals are going to face James Shields for the first time this year. It's been a struggle for him all year, especially since he joined the White Sox. Controversial trade. Royals prospects going to the Rays for James Shields and Wade Davis. Here's what Shields did for the Royals. They just missed the playoffs in 2013 and, of course, went to Game 7 of the World Series in 2014. And now our Toyota League leaders. It has been a struggle for James Shields since he left KC.
Ouch. Look, there'll be no sympathy cards sent to James Shields, I can tell you that. But look, he's had issues. 35 home runs? Now, he's not a ground ball pitcher, and he's pitching in a home run stadium. There you go.
Beautiful night in Chicago. Fall is on the way. We'll have more from Chicago after this. Royals have won 5 consecutive series with the Chicago White Sox. That could be in jeopardy tonight. The lineups and the first pitch are coming up next. Two degrees. Rained last night, rain today. That's out of Chicago. Took all the humidity with it. And it's starting to feel like fall. Royals lineup tonight, as we mentioned, no Lorenzo Cain. Whit Merrifield is back in there tonight. He'll be at second base. And Salvador Perez back in there. He'll be hitting fifth. Christian Colon will be at third base tonight and bat ninth. Changes from last night. Facing James Shields. 3-10 in 17 starts since being traded over to the White Sox. A 7.50 ERA, and he's allowed 26 home runs in just 84 innings here in Chicago, and he has really been hit hard at U.S. Cellular Field.
Pick you out a piece of cheese and drive it. Big James is not as game as he used to be, but look, he's still a competitor. He's facing his old teammates. He could come out with a gem tonight. You just never know in baseball. Let's hope not. Fastball, changeup, cutter, curve. Look what the opponents are doing on his fastball. That cutter, not a lot. He's out over the plate. Velocity might be down just a tad, but certainly not the same pitcher he was when he was in a Royals uniform.
Gerard Dyson leads off. He was not in the lineup last night with the lefty Carlos Rodon on the mound. And Shields' first pitch is fouled away off of third, and Frazier can't quite get it. It tried to come back, and Frazier, reaching through the cameras on the third base side, almost was able to make the play. Dyson hit .429 in the Minnesota series, and if you go back over his last 8 games, hitting .361, scoring about a run per game. There's a cutter, and it's in for a strike. Dyson's not sure as he talks it over with home plate umpire Manny Gonzalez.
Yeah, he's saying, whoa, whoa. Hey, now, you can't give him that part of the plate in there. But it's early. We'll see. James has been working on his changeup, trying to manipulate it, turn it over so it has a little bit more downward movement like that one there. He's trying to figure some things out here during this time he's been struggling. And that's what you do. Hitters make adjustments, so do pitchers. He's a veteran. He knows all about that. Trying to turn the changeup over a little more so he can get some more downward break.
That changeup fades outside. 2 balls, 2 strikes. He is trying to bounce back from this start Saturday at Minnesota. 3 home runs, 5 runs in fewer than 3 innings. Brian Dozier led off that game with a home run, by the way. And now full count on Dyson. That was the 5th time this year. 5th time that Shields has allowed 3 or more home runs in one start.
He's not a ground ball pitcher. So if he's not getting strikeouts, he's in trouble. He's in a ballpark where you can hit home runs pretty readily. 330 down each line, 335 down the right field, 330 down the left field. My bad. But it's a ball flies out of here. 400 straightaway center field. Dyson, good at bat going here, milking the pitch count.
Another foul ball.
And you know his ERA in the first 2 innings is 9.33. So get him early. And whenever you start the game with a leadoff hitter, what Dyson's doing to you, it's not good. Milk as many pitches as you can. If you don't get on base, you still had a good at bat.
Shallow left field and in between Anderson and Cabrera.
Okay, so you win it with a doinker. Now that's an extra bonus. You already had a good plate appearance. You tax his pitch count. James Shields right now is going, oh, really? You had to doink me? It's not how hard you hit it. It's where you hit it. 8 pitch at bat.
Whit Merrifield came off the bench last night and had a pinch hit single in the 6th inning, and then in his second at bat, line to center. Do you hear Shields grunt after every pitch? I don't remember that as a Royal. Fastball at 92 for a strike.
I'd heard him a few times. Our microphone at the K, maybe not quite as clear as the one here,
Or
but
less
Yeah, but he's
crowd.
That's probably what it is.
Microphone isn't competing with the crowd like it was at Kauffman Stadium.
You know how tennis players, they hit,
right?
And you hear him grunt. Same kind of thing. He's got a. That's some good movement out there. Wait him out. It is not using the slide step. Dyson should be able to rip him off if he wants to.
Royals as a team and Dyson individually have the most stolen bases in the American League, and now that gets through Abreu, and Dyson may go to third. Nope, he's going to hold. So a doink and a clank.
Not exactly how James Shields wanted to start. He's got quick feet, but he whiffed the throw. Gerard knew it was coming. Now that looked like a catchable ball. I think he threw it so hard that Abreu couldn't glove it. I'd like to see Merrifield keep his hands inside the baseball and use the opposite field here to move it. No bunts or anything like that early. Just score some runs off James.
Come on, Shields, perk up. Let's go. Come on.
Wade has hit in 5 straight since we called back up, and 429 along the way.
All you got to do, they'll take care of it. Pound the strike zone.
3 balls, 1 strike. Now I remember Shields as a Royal, if he was going to struggle, it was the first inning. So this is not unique, but his struggles this year have gone beyond the first inning into the second inning and the third inning. He has not completed 3 innings 5 times this year. Anderson out from short makes the play. So Merrifield pops out on a 3-1 pitch, and there's 1 away.
That's right. We're not done bragging about Adam Eaton. Plus 23 defensive runs saved. That's second best in Major League Baseball. We showed you his assist last night. We're jumping on him because he's hot. Only Mookie Betts is better out there in the outfield than he is. And I saw him before the game. Talked to him about how our Hall of Famer Jeff Montgomery likes to call guys like him a grommet or a flea. And his face lit up. He liked it. That was a compliment.
Well, the flea is to the track, and the flea is a spectator. Eric Hosmer homers to straightaway center field, and the Royals, for a second straight night, have 2 runs in the first inning.
Well, it didn't start that favorably for James Shields when Dyson worked 8 pitches with a little broken bat thing, but now Hosmer at 92, that little cutter, it was right over the middle of the plate, and Hos knew it. So did James Shields.
So we've had a doink, we've had a clang, and a pow with the ball hitting the roof in straightaway center field.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a noisy in many different ways first inning.
Better believe it.
Morales gets around on that fastball. 1 ball, 1 strike. They have changed the air, by the way, and given it to Abreu on that pickup attempt by Shields.
Yeah.
So it's now an error 3.
Went right through his glove.
Royals, it's early, but the Royals are not biting on Shields' changeup. It's like they know it's coming.
Exactly. Every single pitch. Just not going good for James. And, you know, really, I don't think the Royals care it.
3-1.
But he did do some very good things for the Kansas City Royals when he was in the uniform. There's no denying that. He brought a little swagger. He brought a little moxie. He brought some celebrations that they never had there before.
It was Morales last night driving in 2 in the first inning, and those would be the only 2 runs the Royals would score.
James Shields also brought Wade Davis with him.
And it has become the Wade Davis trade. Morales takes a walk.
And when you're missing, you're not going to get pitches like that. James wanted it.
Yep. Maybe the biggest thing that James Shields brought to the Royals was he came from what looked like a hopeless situation playing for the Tampa Bay Rays. Their existence began with 10 consecutive losing seasons, and then suddenly they were in the World Series. And they became the hope of small market teams. That if you build from within, draft and develop wisely, keep the guys together. We saw that example also in Minnesota. But this was an example of a guy who lived it. And so when he would talk about changing the mindset and changing your attitude and the benefits of it, well, it wasn't just talk. Dropped down there with his arm angle, and it's 2-0 on Salvi.
Didn't he win the only World Series game for the Tampa Bay Rays?
Yep.
In 08.
Salvi's taking all the way. Hit by pitch on Tuesday in Minnesota. He missed the game on Wednesday and missed the game last night.
Can't afford to miss here. He's got to come in there.
First time the Royals have swung with the changeup.
And there's a big difference between a bone bruise and a spraying in your wrist. Big difference. You could tell by Salvi's first swing in live action.
He's not going anywhere.
Good swing at a fastball. I remember when James Shields and Wade Davis were introduced after the trade, introduced in Kansas City for the first time, and Shields spent a lot of time talking about looking forward to throwing to Salvador Perez and how much he admired him in the Rays dugout, seeing a young Salvador Perez in his first 2 years with the Royals. Salvi made his big league debut at Tampa Bay. 3-2.
Salvi just 1 for 3 in his career off.
Changeup struck him out. 2 down.
Made some good pitches there. Everything was down and off the plate to him. Didn't come inside, challenge him one bit. One thing that James probably is not really cognizant of right now is his tempo. It's really slow. He doesn't look really confident, especially after the Royals are up 2-0.
Pulled foul by Alex. Alex was 1 for 4 last night and made 2 very good defensive plays in left field.
Alex has the most at bats against James Shields of anybody on the team. 22. 3 for 22.
Shields wants to talk to Narvaez.
I thought Narvaez would have made a trip out there sooner already. To go out there and just say, hey, come on, James, it's the first inning here. Let's go pick up the tempo a little bit. The pitching coach is not going to come out there. That's up to the catcher to do that. But he's young and maybe a little intimidated by James Shields.
Oh, 0-2. He has backed off the rubber twice with Kendrys Morales at first base.
Tells me that they're having some signal issues and some signs. He knows Morales isn't going anywhere.
He doesn't look very fluid on the mound. He looks very strained.
It's not confident. He doesn't have confident look. And that's what hitters see. His defenders are back there going. Todd Frazier's got his glove off. They got their hands crossed.
This is the 31st pitch, and it's hit in the air to left field. Shields screams into his glove. He gives up 2 with 1 on and 1 out. Eric Hosmer on the first pitch he sees from Shields tonight homers to straightaway center field. The Royals scored 2 in the first inning last night, and then Adam Eaton on a 0-2 pitch doubled in the first. Sox got a run in the first, 2 in the third, 2 in the fifth, and 2 in the eighth. And Adam Eaton reached base 3 times last night and scored 2 runs. Well, it's also been a struggle for Edinson Volquez in his last 8 starts. ERA over 6 during that stretch. He has had 1 quality start over his last 8. On the other side, by making a start tonight, this is his 30th of the year. As Eaton lines it into right center field, and Dyson cuts it off deep, and Adam Eaton once again leads off the first inning with a double.
Well, we saw that all night out of the White Sox last night. Split the gap, but Dyson did a great job of getting to it before it turned into a triple. Good level swing. Look at him. He's off to the races. This guy, he's a pain in the opponent's side. elevation was the key there. It was up. When his two-seam fastball's working, it's down in the zone. 2- and 4-seam fastball, curve and change.
Tim Anderson was 1 for 5 last night. Drove in a run, scored a run. And one of his outs was a ground ball to advance a runner from second to third with nobody out, and that's what he's trying to do here with Eaton. Again, taking a shot at right field, 1-2.
Anderson, he looks like he's going to be a player. He does a lot of little things right. For Volquez, I showed you 4- and 2-seam fastball. He likes the 4-seam up in the strike zone with 2 strikes. He'll try, but mainly down with his 2-seamer. Curve stays down, change up. It's been his best pitch.
By making his 30th start tonight, he has done that for 5 consecutive seasons, and he's one of just 3 pitchers in the major leagues that can claim that, along with Max Scherzer and, cover your ears, Madison Bumgarner. So Anderson down in strikes, not able to advance Eaton, and there's one down in the bottom of the first.
Royals defense sponsored by Ford. Salvador Perez could put it into their running game. We'll see. Last night they challenged Butera and were successful. Ripped off a couple and scored both runs.
Melky Cabrera with a runner in scoring position. He drove in 2 more against the Royals last night. And I like Volquez's chances if he keeps swinging at that pitch.
Yeah. And you would think that Eaton had a chance to advance on that. Salvo did a great job of blocking that. I don't know how he got that. The pitch was way off and in. Melky's been good with runners in scoring position. 320.
So throw it again, which Volquez does, and this time Cabrera wouldn't bite.
Ten for 33 with a homer. Melky's numbers off of Volquez.
Dyson back and over into left center. Eaton runs back to tag, but it's too late. So 2 down with a runner at second base. Volquez has had some trouble this year in the first inning, and of course he had that one real bad game with Houston, but he has not allowed a run in the first inning in 6 consecutive starts, and is about to work around a leadoff double if he can get through Jose Abreu, who drove in one of the 7 White Sox runs last night.
Abreu 5 for 20 off of Volquez. Likes to go to the opposite field.
Changeup dips low, ball 1.
Alex Gordon, 6 outfield assists. We all know he's one of the best. Paulo's got 6 assists as well. Dyson 8 this year.
1-1. Smash to left field. Alex slides, rolls, and he's got it.
Oh, man. You got to react on contact to make that catch on that sinking liner. Oh, heartbreaker for Abreu, but hang with him. Great play.
James Shields back on the hill. His pitching coach, Don Cooper, been here a long time, never shy with his opinions. I asked him what's been going on with Big Game James.
Nobody's like they were and had the stuff like they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. His command isn't very good. The home runs are alarming rate. Our park is a good hitting park, and if you don't get ground balls, you better get strikeouts. And fly balls leave. But not only in our park, they leave in a lot of parks. He's either been good or bad, and there's been no in between. So that's what we're searching for. We're searching for more consistency on a more regular basis.
I think we know how Don Cooper feels about that one. Very open and honest, as Paulo Orlando is going to lead off this inning with the ground out to second base. But in talking to Don Cooper, he also sees plenty of good or potential there in his pitcher, James Shields. They've been working a lot, but as he said, it's been either really good or really bad. There was a stretch of about 6 games where he was really good. That's what they're trying to recapture, hoping that they can do that, if not this year, in the coming years, because they have him for more than this season. But you want to talk about an honest assessment, Hud, there you go.
Yeah, no, he's never shy to share his feelings, but he has extreme confidence in James. I talked to him before the game today about James Shields, and he says, look, now, he pulled out a great start against the Cubs, one of the best offensive teams in baseball, because, you know, he had a little extra incentive. Joe Madden was his manager in Tampa Bay, and they're hoping that James will step up against his former team tonight.
Here are the combined numbers. 17 losses, most in the major leagues, 6.07 ERA, highest in the major leagues, 36 home runs, most in the major leagues, and he's allowed the highest slugging percentage in the major leagues.
Tough year.
Don Cooper has an interesting accent for a guy from Oregon.
He's not from Oregon. He's from upstate New York.
I was going to say, I mean, that's like when he's done being a major league pitching coach, he could be a detective on one of those New York cop shows. He's
a beauty. He's always been that way. You know, at one time, he could pitch a little bit.
2-2 on Escobar. Esky one game after losing his 14-game hitting streak. He bounced back last night, had 2 hits and 2 stolen bases. 3-2.
Royals are being ultra selective tonight. Last night against Rodon had great stuff, though. It's a big difference. James doesn't quite have the stuff that Rodon had.
That was his cutter, and when we showed you his pitch breakdown, his cut fastball has been the pitch that has hurt him the most. Escobar walks with 1 out. And that's Shields' second walk tonight. A reminder, as you enjoy a cold one, look forward to Miller Time later in tonight's game, brought to you by Miller Lite. Christian Colon gets the start at third base tonight and bats 9th. This is his first appearance on this road trip. And with strike 1.
That was Eski's 26th walk. Ties his high from last year. He's going to shatter that mark this year.
Oh, 2 on Colon. Escobar runs, and it's fouled away. Royals stole 3 bases last night. Another thing with Shields, he is not going to go 200 innings this year, and that was something that you could pretty much put in ink before the season started, that he would go at least 200 seasons. Last year was his 9th consecutive season with at least 200 innings, and he was the only active pitcher who could claim that. That streak will come to an end this year. And he wants to talk with Narvaez again. Escobar had 2 of the 3 Royals stolen bases last night. Not running, and it's lined toward right. Garcia in pursuit, and it is just foul. Rusty Kuntz and Christian Colon both look toward the Royal dugout, so they'll take another look. First base umpire is Jim Reynolds.
Yeah, we knew. I'm not too sure. I knew for sure that Garcia wasn't going to be able to get to it.
No challenge.
It's more bad luck for Colon. He had a hit taken away back at our place on a replay.
Almost dropped one in right there. Down to the count 0-2.
Well, you can almost sit on James's changeup.
Lays off the breaking ball, 1-2. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Having some difficulty putting hitters away. He's throwing strikes. He's gotten ahead of some of the hitters, but I've seen a lot of counts go 0-2 to 2-2, like with Cologne, or 1-2 to 3-2. And it's just adding to his pitch count. He needed 31 pitches to get through the first inning. And Cologne is down on strikes. 2 strikeouts for Shields, both with his changeup.
to 25 seconds in between pitches. It's a lot.
Dyson worked a full count, fouled off 7 pitches, and then singled first time up, and he takes outside, 1 ball and no strikes.
This is bringing flashbacks. Playing behind Dennis Martinez, El Presidente. Good, great guy, good competitor, but was on his time. And after every pitch, he would go in back of the mound and rub up the baseball. Every pitch.
One and one.
James, he's trying to rely on Chase. He knows that the Royals are an aggressive swinging team. They didn't in the first inning. They have a little bit here. There's he have his glove on.
Saladino, nice play. Dyson is out, and so are the Royals in the second inning. And the Royals need a win. The Royals have lost 6 of their last 9 coming into tonight. That was after they had won 18 of 22. Eric Hosmer hit a 2-run home run in the first inning. Edinson Volquez got around Adam Eaton's leadoff double. Eaton never got to third in that inning. 0-2 on Justin Morneau. Morneau drove in a run last night. He was 1 for 4. Up the middle and into center field. And now Morneau's digging for second. He is in there. Cologne had to come over from third base to cover.
That's a great read by Morneau. This is a veteran guy who's not just happy taking one base at a time. Look at that. He's off the end. Now he's hustling. You can see there's nobody at second base. Now Merrifield goes back. Ball wasn't hit hard. Matter of fact, it had almost come to a dead standstill. Look at the veteran. He's saying, I can do this.
Lucky didn't hurt himself going and standing.
Right.
And now a bunt by Frazier. So that gets Morneau to third base. Todd Frazier with 35 home runs. And the White Sox down by 2. Drops down a bunt.
Well, if you look at his numbers with runners in scoring position, they might be some of the lowest in the league for an everyday player. He's just hitting 161. So I don't know if anybody's going to say, hey, we'd rather have you swing the batter. But Robin Ventura's turning around in the dugout right now and having a little conversation with him there, getting his thought process. But hey, got him to third base with less than 2 outs.
It was scored, and that's the operative word. It was scored a sacrifice.
Okay.
Which is his first of the year. We were just in Minnesota, and we saw a play where Gerard Dyson, with a runner at first base and 1 out, was clearly bunting for a base hit. Now, most official scores will do what the scorer did here in Chicago and just default to, well, it's a sacrifice. But that was not scored a sacrifice. The official scorer thought, you know what? He's not sacrificing. He's bunting for a base hit. Todd Frazier was not dropping down a sacrifice bunt. He was bunting for a base hit, in my humble opinion. But you know what? 10 years from now, who cares?
Yeah, that's right.
1-2 on Avisail Garcia.
White Sox official scorer Bob Rosenberg has been here a long time, and we had a little conversation. He came over in our booth before the game, and we talked about the art of scoring. And he says that they have meetings every year. All the official scorers in baseball get together and they talk about certain things.
That was also Frazier's 5th sacrifice bunt since he became a professional.
So
he's really taken one for the team. Good guy.
There's Rosie.
One of the more colorful official scores in Major League Baseball. Even though I disagree with the call of a sacrifice.
Yep. Make a pitch here.
Jammed him.
He did. Good
2
spot.
down.
That's a great spot there.
Edinson Volquez 10-10 as he makes his 30th start of the year. Academy Sports and Outdoors leaderboard. Royals have 4 pitchers with 10 or more wins. Second most in the major leagues behind the Indians, who have 5.
How about that? Some impressive numbers.
And now Omar Narvaez. High for ball 1. Right center field. Paulo got a good jump, and for a second straight inning, Edinson Volquez, even with Frazier's bunt, works around a leadoff double.
Yeah, nice job, Eddie.
Now, Hud, I don't want to be jumping to conclusions. I mean,
Why not?
maybe Todd Frazier was sacrificing. So I wanted to look up, you know, the definition of sacrifice just to make sure I'm not out of line. Sacrifice, an act of slaughtering an animal or person or surrendering a possession as an offering to God or to a divine or supernatural figure.
Wow.
I don't think he was sacrificing.
No.
It's my opinion.
Okay, since you read the interpretation, I agree with you. You win.
Ball one to Whit Merrifield. Whit hopes he gets the same pitch that he got with the count 3-1 in the first inning. We got a 3-1 fastball, and it's just a little bit out in front and popped it up. Now 1 ball, 1 strike. The Royals got their 2 runs in the first on an Eric Hosmer 2-run home run. Garcia backs up the ball, really caring, and Garcia goes all the way to the warning track. Merrifield put a charge into that one, and this is not the middle of the summer with heat and humidity that would help a ball like that. He put a good swing on it.
Sure did.
You can get closer to the action at Kauffman Stadium with our Royals Memories program. Choose amongst a variety of unique opportunities, such as a photo on the field, watching batting practice, and delivering the game ball. All experiences are available for purchase each game exclusively through the MLB.com ballpark app.
There's our Royals fan that comes here a lot.
No swing. Eric Hosmer on the first pitch he saw from Shields in the first inning homered to straightaway center field, driving in Gerard Dyson. Hosmer adds to his career high with 22 home runs.
He threw him a cookie. That was right down the middle of the plate.
(3-0).
So why not make that our Jeep drive of the game?
Why not?
Yeah, look at that. Beautiful. Nice, easy. He knew it. That ball had some nice carry on it. 22nd of the year for Haas. Now, we were talking before the game. Haas was over near the dugout getting some pine tar for his bat, and then he was loading the bat up and everything. And I said, Haas, how about taking James over the State Farm side tonight? He looked out there and he goes, okay, I can do that. But he hit it in center anyway.
Shields has walked 3 already, 1 in each inning, and he's moving up on 60 pitches already. Kendrys Morales was the first to walk against Shields tonight. 12 runs driven in for Morales in the first 4 games. 10 of those in Minnesota. He homered 4 times in Minnesota. And we told you last night, the first player in Royals history to hit 4 home runs and drive in 10 in any 3-game series.
Impressive. But you know what? The way he stays inside of that ball and hits it where it's pitched, his thought process that goes into each at bat, the fact that he can make adjustments in at bat is the reason. Smart hitter.
.26 home runs for Morales. That's 4 more than he hit last year, and 8 shy of his career high. Hit 34 home runs with the Angels in 09. 1-2.
The breaking ball staying down there.
Stay fair. And it will.
Now he deserves that. How many times this year have we seen Morales hit a ball on the screws? I mean, barrel it up right at somebody. I'm going to say 20 times. And he deserved it. He got a little cue shot. Yeah, says that's how I drew it up. They don't even out, for those of you who think, oh, they all even out. Hitters will tell you they don't. It's the 118th infield hit by the Royals, tied for third in the league.
Cutter away is cut on and missed. And Shields struck out Salvi in the first inning with a changeup. To Frazier. White Sox help out Shields for the 5-4-3 inning-ending double play. To the bottom of the third inning, and here's our greater coverage of baseball brought to you by T-Mobile. All right, these are pitchers who were the first to reach 20 wins. Justin Verlander won the Cy Young. Gio Gonzalez did not, but Max Scherzer, Clayton Kershaw, and Jake Arrieta all did. So, with Porcello, will he be this year's American League Cy Young winner?
Well, they'll look at that ERA. He's just a tick over 3, which is not bad. And a couple more good starts. Sure, he's got about 5 left, probably 4 or 5. He could get that under. And if he gets an under 3, he's a lock. Of course, that has a lot to do with run support. Red Sox have the best offense in the American League.
Not just 20 wins, he has 20-3. Two balls and 1 strike on Tyler Saladino.
All right, so I had a little conversation with Tyler before the game. I said, Tyler, can't you find some wax that you can wax the ends up and be like that gentleman on the left there? And just kind of turn it up, you know, and make it look stylish.
And then he called security on you?
No, he didn't. He laughed and said, Robin Ventura, my manager, got me some wax. He got some kind of, you know, wax that they use for that.
Butch wax, is that what it's called?
It's some kind of heavy wax. He said he tried it, and it just wouldn't work. Tester.
Saladino's on to begin the third.
That's a tough play. I'm giving him a hit there, that's for sure. No way. You know, if you wait back, he beats it out. Wow. Ooh, that's tough. Come on, Rosie. I know you've seen a lot of baseball, but man, come on, that's tough play right there. Now, I guess he's thinking that had he waited back, he might have thrown him out.
So leadoff man on for a third straight inning. Talking about Saladino and just looking at Christian Colon, suddenly the Royals are one of the most clean-cut teams in the league.
Anyway, he tried the wax and he said it didn't work. I don't have any body in my mustache. There's no waves or anything, and it won't work. It looked like two icicles hanging down. He says it just didn't work. I didn't know you had to have body in your facial hair for it to work it like that.
Well, now you know.
All right. This is tidbit there.
Adam Eaton doubled in the first inning. Now he must have body.
He does. You can tell how frizzy and curly his hair is. Makes it easier.
Deep in thought as he contemplates Volquez's 1-1 pitch. And Hosmer, nice play. Force at second. That's all the Royals will get. And Eaton's at first with one out.
It's a nice athletic play here. The ability to catch that one thing, but to throw on the run with ease shows you why he's a Gold Glove.
And he recognized that there was only one out on that play. You know, he didn't try and rush the throw to second base to try and turn a double play.
Exactly right. One for sure.
So 1-on-1 out to Tim Anderson. Volquez struck him out in the first inning.
Volquez can induce them ground ball double plays. He's produced 14 this year.
Just down and away, ball one. Tim Anderson, White Sox first-round pick in 2013 out of East Central Community College in Mississippi. And then we saw his big league debut right here in Chicago in the middle of June. And in his first at-bat, he doubled and scored a run.
Rosie's changing that to a hit. From Saladino. Taking the air away from Colon.
Did it have anything to do with all the shaming that you were doing through the mirror or through the glass?
No, but he did look at me and he gave me the thumbs up or the thumbs down, and I stood up and gave him the thumbs up, and he goes, air, and I go, no, it was a hit.
Ball popped out of Hosmer's glove. Two balls, one strike.
See how Eaton dives from the farthest corner of the bag. That's what you do. Make that guy bring that tag all the way around.
White Sox stole 2 bases last night. The way the White Sox played last night inspired some of the folks that we talked to connected with the Sox. We're kind of waiting all year for them to be aggressive as Eaton runs, and that's fouled away. Feeling that they haven't been aggressive enough on the bases and they're sitting back and waiting for home runs. Problem with that theory is they have hit the 5th fewest home runs in the American League. This is not a home run hitting team. So people we talk to like the way that the White Sox play a little version of the Royals style of play and forcing the action. Eaton is not running, and it's a full count on Anderson.
You got to find some way to generate some kind of pressure on the opponents, and speed is the best element for that. Now, the 3-run home run, there's nothing better, but if you don't have hitters that can do that, with the Royals, they have a world championship because of one of the elements that they have offensively, and that's the way they pressure. We've talked about the infield hits that they have. Speed. They force the opponents to make errors.
Eaton runs, and Anderson grounds it through a wide open right side of the infield. Eaton goes to third, and the White Sox have runners at the corners with 1 out.
Pretty surprising, this guy Tim Anderson, having only played 276 minor league games, how knowledgeable he is and how baseball savvy he is. He waited on that and hit that in the hole on purpose. He's able to slow the game down and utilize his hands. And now Volquez, for the 3rd straight inning, is going to have to pitch out of another little jam here.
White Sox had a runner at second, nobody out in both the 1st and 2nd innings. And now 1st and 3rd, 1 out in the 3rd. Fastball is just outside. Melky Cabrera flied to center field in the 1st inning.
Only Jose Abreu has grounded into more double plays than Melky. Melky's at 16. Abreu's at 18. This is what Volke wants here.
Merrifield out at second, and that's all the Royals get, and they're fortunate to get that 1 out. Merrifield made a good play, and then Escobar made a good play on the throw, and it's a 2-1 game.
Almost. Merrifield snow-coned it, just had it at the end of his glove, and he rifled a shot at Escobar's legs. So it was just great to get that 1 out there. Escobar, now if he was able to give him a good throw up around his chest, then he would have turned it over. Nice job of Escobar, at least hanging on, getting it out. And that's what you want in a double play situation. 1 out for sure.
Runner at first, 2 down to Jose Abreu. He hit the daylights out of a Volquez pitch in the 1st inning. But in the area of Alex Gordon, came charging in immediately and made a sliding, tumbling catch.
I mean, when that ball was hit, I looked up immediately on contact to see Alex. He was already moving in. It's almost like, Alex anticipates balls that come to him. He's ready. That's why he's able to get that first step quickness. It's exactly what you want in a position player. If you're a pitcher behind you, I mean, he came in right away. He believed, we see him make these plays all the time, and in order to do that, you have to have great instincts and a great first step reaction.
Hardly recognize him out there.
It's like a young Alex.
The only thing that's missing, comparing him to his first year with the Royals, is the blonde, bushy hair coming out of the back of his cap. On Abreu with Morneau on deck. And that rides inside, 2 on, 2 out. And that's Volquez's first walk. Morneau was down in the count 0-2, and Volquez actually made a pretty good pitch down and away, but he reached out and looked like he hit a single to center field, but he took advantage of the defense in pursuit of that ball and hustled it into a double.
And he cued it to where it came to a stop, a complete stop before Dyson picked it up.
One and one.
That hurt. Manny Gonzalez, home plate umpire, caught down the inside part of the leg. They're laughing. I think it's because Escobar. Manny Gonzalez and Escobar had some words in between innings, and they were good words because they were looking at each other laughing.
Much easier play for Alex. So that's it. The White Sox get their first run. They strand 2, and at the end of 3, the Royals lead by 1. Two-one Royals. Gorgeous sunset. Looking from Lake Michigan back into downtown Chicago. 72 perfect degrees for our first pitch tonight. You hear the seagulls?
I heard that.
Which is much more pleasant sounding than James Shields grunting before he delivers a pitch.
Whatever it takes. I agree, though.
Alex flied out to left field in the first inning. Cutter's a little bit inside. 2-0.
What's he going to come with here now? Maybe the same pitch. They all try to tie up Alex inside. One set up away.
Blasted to right field. It was supposed to be away, but it was down the middle. And Alex hits a rocket into the seats and right, and the Royals get the run right back.
That's what you look for on a 2-0 count, a hitter's count. Something out over the middle, a mistake. The coordinator comes through with his 15th.
And now Paulo Orlando. He had a good swing at a fastball. That fastball was at 90 miles an hour.
Velocity's down a little bit, but let's show you the Alex pitch now. He wanted to go fastball away, but Alex can't see where he's sitting up. He's looking right there down the middle. Look at that. Cookie time.
Paulo goes up the middle, but Saladino was in that area. Second time that Paulo has grounded out to second.
Pretty sweet feeling right there. First of all, you barely feel it on the bat. And then when you know it's out before anybody, that's the second best feeling.
Didn't leave him hanging.
Didn't blow him off. That was a hard fist pound there.
Are we back into the crowd? Attaboy. We'll play the ricochet. Escobar walked first time up. So James Shields with the White Sox has allowed 28 home runs in 87 innings. Now, I'll just say 28 home runs in 200 innings is a lot.
Yep. He's not a ground ball pitcher. He, like Donnie Cooper said, you're either striking guys out
or you're getting ground balls.
Or ground
in
balls
this ballpark.
In this park, because not only our park but other parks can fly out of here to high velocity.
Now 37 home runs if you add in his time with the Padres this year. Oh! 2-2.
That's why it's so important that he gets ahead. Got to get ahead of hitters, then you can try to finish them off with your pitches.
And Kennedy's given up some home runs this year, but his ERA is 3.76.
Right.
Back bat, Saladino makes the play. 2 down. Time for a premier Mazda of Overland Park game break. That is Kyle Seager homering in Oakland, and the Mariners beat the A's 14-3. Seattle was the team right in front of the Royals in the wild card. The Royals entered tonight 4 out. Seattle 3.5, and now the Mariners are 3 back. Baltimore and Detroit are playing each other. Tigers took the first game of that series last night. And in the bottom of the 3rd inning at Detroit, Baltimore scored 7 runs already. 7-1 Baltimore, bottom of the 3rd. Colon hits it out to Eaton in center field, and that'll do it. Royals hit another home run. Alex Gordon belts his 15th, leading off the 4th inning.
Oh, he Gordon-ated all over that one. Baseball is brought to you by Bank of America. Life's better when we're connected.
Eric Hosmer hit a 2-run home run in the first, and Alex Gordon just homered in the top of the 4th inning. Right after the White Sox had scored to draw to within 1 run. Todd Frazier dropped down a beautiful sacrifice bunt in the 2nd inning. His first of the year.
Nice idea, but it didn't work. I mean, it worked to got him over, but Volke executed a nice pitch. Got out of the inning.
Well, Frazier, he wanted to put that sac bunt down so that Garcia and Narvaez could come up and drive in the run.
Oh, doesn't make sense.
There's no I in team. Remember that. Under the chin, 3 balls and no strikes. White Sox have had their leadoff man on in each of the first 3 innings. And now in each of the first 4 innings. Time for tonight's Sprint Trivia question. Name the 3 Royals to post more than Gerard Dyson's 5 seasons of 25 plus stolen bases. So Dyson has 5 straight seasons of 25 or more. Who are the 3 Royals who have done more than that? So 6 seasons or more? Is that what I'm reading into that? 3 Royals who have had 6 or more seasons of 25 plus stolen bases.
Johnny Damon.
Willie Wilson. Amos Otis.
Okay, now.
Is it done right there?
No, because my guys, I had the wrong answer. Johnny Damon. No, that wasn't correct.
Carlos Beltran. No. Garcia popped out to second in the 2nd inning. Frank White.
No.
Brian McRae.
That's a way to get Mac in there. But no. We need one more. Time to roll up a pair.
Right center field. That'll get Frazier to 3rd. Garcia's digging for 2nd on Dyson. Not good. Well, Dyson picks up his 9th outfield assist, and that wasn't even close. So instead of 1st and 3rd and nobody out, it's a runner at 3rd and 1 out.
Yeah, stayed inside on that fastball. That's really good piece of hitting there. He kept his hands inside of it. He was able to rake it out there, keep it away from rolling over to a double play, but just got a little bit too happy coming around the base. At least he tried to get into a rundown. And for as big as he is, some kind of athlete. A big guy like that to attempt a leg double on a ball hit to Gerard Dyson's left, and not by much. Took a lot of courage to do that.
Volquez has been pitching out of the stretch all night. Out to Hosmer. That'll get the run home. 2 down, so Narvaez picks up an RBI. And once again, it's a 1-run game. So leadoff walk turns into a run. It has been very much a high-stress start for Volquez, and that's just kind of the way Volquez goes. Even when Eddie is really good, he rarely has an easy start. And when I say easy, meaning dealing with very few base runners. Colon. That's a fair ball and an out. Leadoff walk. Narvaez gets Frazier to the plate, and at the end of 4, the Royals lead 3-2. To the top of the 5th inning. And our University of Kansas Hospital injury report. Significant injuries affecting the Indians and the Mets. Danny Salazar left last night's start with right forearm tightness. ZRA well over 6 since the All-Star break. And Neil Walker, who is having a really good year after being traded over from the Pirates, out with a back problem, and now he's going to have surgery.
It's too bad. Both of those guys. But this time of year, you know, a lot of guys are running on fumes. And all it takes is that one little extra tweak.
And how about the Mets? If the season ended today, they'd be playing the Giants for the wild card. 2-0 on Dyson. Gerard opened the game with a single and scored on Hosmer's home run. He's also grounded out to second base. Two balls, one strike. Neil Walker, coming over from the Pirates, where he had spent his entire career, was playing well. And replacing Daniel Murphy, who went to the Nationals after leaving the Mets, the only organization he had been with, and he's having a great year. Garcia comes up and right. He can run. He has good speed for a player his size, and makes a sliding catch to get Dyson.
Fans cheer on the Royals next Saturday versus the White Sox and feel like a part of the team in a Royals batting practice pullover presented by Fox Sports Kansas City. First 15,000 fans through the gates will receive the BP pullover. Purchase tickets today at royals.com/promotions.
That's the Friday night Royals jersey. So popular when the Royals Wore it during that opening series with the Mets. The fans liked it, the players liked it, and the Royals received permission from Major League Baseball to wear that Friday nights at home with the gold lettering.
It's good looking.
He swung. Jim Reynolds is the first base umpire. 0-2 on Merrifield. He has popped to short and flied to the warning track in right field. One and two. Cutter got the inside corner, and that's James Shields' third strikeout tonight. 2 down.
Hey, James seems to be settling in. But, you know, good to see Merrifield leave without saying anything to the umpire. That ball was way inside.
Omar Narvaez goes out and says, you might want to add Manny Gonzalez to your Christmas card list.
Yeah, he did. But he had probably said, be careful here.
Ball one to Hosmer. Hit the 2-run home run in the first inning and then walked in the third. That gives Hosmer 90 RBIs this year. So he has a brand new career high with home runs. This is number 22. And now he's 3 runs driven in shy of tying his career high in that category.
Yeah, he'll catch that for sure. Man, that was loud. Pretty homer there.
It was another go-ahead RBI for Hosmer, his 30th of the year. Trailing just Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols in the American League. 1-2.
Getting a little anxious on James now. The first inning they did a good job. They were all taking pitches. They actually looked disciplined up there, our guys.
You and I even said that they were taking pitches like they knew what was coming.
Yeah.
2-2. This time Shields gets Hosmer. And Hosmer says, but I took you deep in the first inning.
Right. See you next time.
Well, we had two pitchers who were really scuffling coming into tonight, putting it mildly for James Shields. So far, a 3-2 game to the bottom of the 5th inning. There have been many scoring opportunities for both teams, but both pitchers have limited the damage. Royals 3 runs, 4 hits. The White Sox 2 runs, 5 hits. White Sox have left 5 on base in the first 4 innings. Adam Eaton yanks it foul.
Neither pitcher has had a 1-2-3 inning. Volquez has allowed the leadoff guy on every time out there.
And twice Volquez has worked around a leadoff double in the first and second innings. 1 ball, 2 strikes on Eaton. On, and for a 5th inning tonight, 5 out of 5, the White Sox have the leadoff man on base. So Volquez once again goes right back to the stretch. Let's go to Joel.
Well, some good news for the Royals at the minor league level. Vance Wilson's Northwest Arkansas Naturals win their first-round series against the Springfield Cardinals as they take the series 3-1. They won today on a walk-off in extra innings and getting some real home run power. Corey Toops, the second baseman, had 4 home runs in the series. Ryan O'Hearn, big first baseman, had 3 home runs in the series. And we told you the other night about Josh Stamont, the kid that throws up to 100 miles an hour with all those strikeouts. 6 innings, 3 walks, and 11 strikeouts in the game. So Northwest Arkansas moves on in their search for the Texas League Championship.
Right, good for them. Well, that was something that this core group of Royals, current group of Royals, pointed to when they became a winning team at this level, winning some championships in the minor leagues. And when Dayton Moore took over as general manager, that was something that he talked about, that, you know, winning at the minor league level is very important. You know, a lot of organizations, you know, if their teams are all 15, 20 games under 500, well, as long as the prospects are getting their at-bats, as long as the prospects are doing well, it'd be nice if they could win. It's not that those organizations don't value winning, but there's a difference between it would be nice if we win and doing whatever they can to win and experience a championship together.
Yeah, it's great. It teaches the way to win, how to win, and then when you get here, you've already done it. And if you're with some of those core players that are on that team, you all can look at each other and say, hey, look, we remember this. We can do this up here too. It just takes time.
And they know what that feels like to enjoy that as a group.
Right.
Because you can be a player in the minor leagues that they're trying to develop as a number 3 or number 4 hitter, let's say. So they're not going to bunt. You know, they may not try and move a runner over with a ground ball to the right side. They want those hitters up there trying to find pitches to drive. Well, that number 3 or 4 hitter might be a number 7 hitter once he gets to the big leagues. Merrifield makes a good play, a 4-3 double play, and they're 2 down.
There you go. That helps out Edison. His 15th ground ball double play that Edison has induced. Now, this is a routine play unless the runner knocks you over or slides into you. And that would be interesting with the rule change now. If Eaton did slide and knock him down, which is legal, you can do that, would they replay that and say, slide was, you can't do that. But it used to be you could if he was in your way and the runner came, the fielder tried to tag you, you could run him over or slide and knock him down. Same as breaking up a double play. But we haven't seen that.
Well, there's a difference between sliding at the infielder instead of sliding into the base and declaring your right to the baseline and the fielder is in your way, far in front of the base.
be interesting to see what happened. But if I'm Eaton, I knock him over. Just bump her up and take him with.
I think he can.
Yeah, right.
Line to right. Double play was big. Melky Cabrera digs for second base. Paulo makes it close. So instead of a run scoring thanks to the double play, it's just a 2-out double for Melky Cabrera.
Jumped on the fastball up. It was up. And it looked like it was not a very graceful slide. Melky's digging hard. But it worked. It's okay.
Kind of a little sideways thing.
Yeah, I think, well, Escobar deked it. Escobar was standing there like nothing was coming in, and then Melky said, oh, he's going to try to trick me, so he tried to slide inside.
Now back to whether Eaton could have run over Merrifield or not. You remember Albert Bell taking out Fernando Vina in Milwaukee?
But you have to make it look a little better than that. He hit him and lifted him off the ground and landed, and he stood there over him like, take that. Had he just run off the field, I think no one would have said anything.
One and one on Abreu. He is lined out to left, and Alex Gordon made the defensive play of the game, and then he has also walked.
Jose Oquendo tried to slide in the middle of the bait between first and second on me and knocked me down, and he couldn't do it, and he slid into me, and I helped him up, and I said, can't chop a redwood down. Nice try.
You didn't really say that, did you?
Believe it. No, I helped him up.
You can't chop a redwood down?
That's right. Too hard to do.
I'm going to ask Jose Oquendo that when we play the Cardinals next year.
He might have a whole bunch of other stories too. I hope he comes back. He's missed the season this year. Had some issues with his knee. Gloved him. Heck of a play. Got to be careful with this guy. Make a pitch.
Full count. Got it in on him, still 3-2.
And Abreu looked like he tried to pull that. Normally he's thinking opposite field. Even in the hitter's count like this. You can see how Volquez and Salvador Perez are trying to work him in off the plate because he's so good the other way. They don't want to leave anything out over, even 2 inches off the outside part of the plate.
And to left field. Cabrera is going to be waved to the plate. Close, but safe, and the game is tied. So even turning a double play, the White Sox get a 2-out double. Abreu drives in his 90th. And it's 3-3 in the bottom of the 5th.
Well, a smart hitter like Abreu can tell what a pitcher's trying to do to him. So every pitch was on the inner half, so he says, I'm going to look in there. And he did. He didn't hit it like he wanted to, but he found the hole. Alex's throw was good, but not perfect. It needed to be perfect, but, you know, even Alex isn't perfect at times. But Still, that's where you'd rather have the ball. If Salvi somehow can hold on to it, it might have been close. But a great attempt.
Volquez stumbled as he delivered that pitch to Morneau. Morneau's doubled and flied to left. One and one.
Tell you what, the White Sox offense looks a lot different with Morneau in between Abreu and Frazier. Veteran bat, dangerous, knows how to hit. It's a different look than when we saw him last time.
Tied him up 1-2. High stress start for Volquez. The leadoff man has been on in each of the first 5 innings. Ten base runners for the White Sox in 5 innings. Two.
I think that pitch was a little short, like about 5 feet. Salvi's doing a nice job back there. Think about it. You know, he's blocked 10 balls, 10 pitches tonight. Volquez's pitches, they all move down. The changeup, especially the curve. His two-seamer, not as much. But it helps to know when it's coming. He's calling the pitch.
Come on, go, pitch already.
Didn't quite stick in his glove. Still 2-2. Getting some good commentary from that fan right behind home plate in the bright yellow jacket. As Volquez was shaking off all the signs, maybe you could hear in the background, "Come on, pitch already."
Well, he's a fan. He's into the game, and look, he's as close as you can be as a fan to be in the game. He's right behind home plate. Let's see. And the microphone's not too far above it.
There he is. It's like what, an M&M's NASCAR jacket.
That is.
Fair ball. And the White Sox have the lead for the first time tonight. That's the second double for Justin Morneau. It is the second double of this inning. And Chicago leads 4-3.
It's not an easy out, like I said. He's a new addition since the Royals have seen the White Sox, and he's dangerous. He's going to hit the ball, put it in play hard.
Now the White Sox have scored in each of the last 3 innings. Morneau's in scoring position for Todd Frazier. Just below the knees, ball 1. Frazier has a sacrifice bunt and a walk. He has scored a run. One ball, one strike. There's Matt Strom warming up in a hurry in the Royals bullpen. Frazier has 35 home runs, which is a record for a White Sox third baseman. It also ties his career high. He's hitting home runs, but he's had a bad time this year hitting with runners in scoring position. Down in the count, 1 ball and 2 strikes. 161. That's the lowest in the American League with players that have at least 100 plate appearances.
Now that was my reasoning why he tried to bunt, but Robin Ventura, when he walked down the steps, turned his head and said, "Hey, what was that?" It's not quite like Adam Dunn because Adam walked a lot, but he was kind of all or nothing. The heavy strikeouts.
Paulo racing to the line, and he beats the ball to the line and then gives away a baseball for a souvenir. With 2 outs and nobody on, the White Sox get 2 doubles and a single, and they lead for the first time tonight. Nothing, and a 3-1 lead, but the White Sox have scored the last 3 runs, and now they lead for the first time. Headed to the 6th inning.
5th inning. That's when they got to a leadoff batter on every single inning. Brayu finds a hole. Little 3-hop worm burner right on the left side. Melky barely made it home. Orno back at it again. Rakes the double down the right field line. Score to Brayu, and the Royals offense have got to find a way to get to James Shields and give him the parting gift before they get to their bullpen. Only 4 hits.
Morales, Perez, and Gordon in the 6th. Shields falls behind, 2 balls, no strikes. Nobody is warming up at the moment. That could change if Morales gets on. Shields is at 91 pitches. Kendrys has an infield single, and he's walked.
Bullpen stern. White Sox doing a good job for James offensively. And he's keeping them in the game. Getting the Royals to swing a lot of pitches out of the zone.
And now the phone rings out there. Leadoff walk. And that's the 4th walk given up by Shields. 6th inning, our Sonic Slam inning. Our contestant is Karen Moore from Blue Springs. And if the Royals hit a home run out of the park in this inning, Karen wins $200. If the Royals hit a grand slam out of the park, Karen wins $25,000 from Sonic and the Royals. The Royals loaded the bases last night in the Sonic Slam inning. So here's Don Cooper.
All right,
chat with Shields.
Check him out if we can see his lips. Darn it. Saladino, move to your left or right so we can see Coop. I used to read his lips when he was pitching and I was hitting, and the pitching coach would come out and talk to him in AAA. I could read his lips. He says, I'm not going to throw him a fastball. And he's shaking his head no. And you can see fastball. So I spit on every one of his pitches and took the walk. And now as a pitching coach, he's the same way.
Chris Beck warms up. He pitched last night. Were pitchers afraid to throw you a fastball in AAA? Is that the moral of the story?
No. That was harmless. I was a flea.
Salvi's 0 for 2 so far. Our Kubota Power Stats. Here's where Salvi ranks among American League catchers. Most hits, most doubles, most extra base hits, and the highest slugging percentage. No swing.
Take that exhale, Salvi. Big, deep breath. Exhale and look for that pitch. Your pitch.
One ball, 2 strikes.
Because Karen Moore, even though it's $200, she wants some cash. And Volquez wants a lead. Another hook coming. If he's swung at it 2 times, going to do it again.
2-2. White Sox just got the lead against Volquez in the bottom of the 5th inning. Rose had the leadoff man on in the 6th. Got him with a breaking ball down. Shields has struck out 5 and 3 of the last 4.
Fans cheer on longtime Royal Alex Gordon on Thursdays in his fan section. Gordonation. For only $35, you can get a seat in left field, a limited edition Charlie Hustle brand t-shirt, and an Alex Gordon big head. Only a few Gordonations remaining, so for tickets, go to Royals.com/theme tickets.
In fact, 2 remain this Thursday and then the 29th. Last time up, Alex hit a line drive home run to right field. See Salvi's reaction?
Childlike. It's beautiful.
Hosmer hit a 2-run home run in the 1st. And the Royals with 3 runs on 4 hits against Shields. Shields has also walked 4. Two and 1.
He is staying down with everything. Haven't seen him miss up in the last 2 innings because he's getting Royals to swing. There's one up.
Long run, Melky Cabrera, and makes the play. Morales back to first, 2 down. Paulo Orlando has grounded out to the second baseman Saladino twice. I think Paulo's due.
Okay, I'm with you.
And he has just missed a couple of James Shields fastballs tonight.
Karen Moore, she agrees with you too.
Not that location.
See him up.
Ball, 1 strike. Through Shields and an easy play for Saladino. So it wasn't easy, but James Shields gets through 6 innings, allowing just 3 runs on 4 hits. Behind Chin-Ming Wong, he's done after 5 innings, allowing 4 runs, 9 hits. He had a couple of 2-run leads tonight early. 2-0 at the end of a half inning, and then 3-1 after 3.5 innings. So he departs. Matt Strom comes on in the 7th. We'll make that the bottom of the 6th, and we'll get the lower third of the order. Avisail Garcia, Omar Narvaez, and Tyler Saladino.
Opponent average, they're not doing much off of him. Look at that, 21 strikeouts for Strom in just 16 innings.
Garcia helped set up a White Sox run in the 4th inning with a single. That got Frazier to 3rd, and then Frazier scored on a ground out.
If I'm a Chicago Bears scout, I'm going to talk to Avisail Garcia and see if he wants to come out and catch a football. Because with his speed and his size, 6'4", 240, you could teach him to block. You can do a lot easier going from baseball to football than you can from football to baseball. Tim Tebow's going to find that out. We're pulling for him. But it's all about moving the football, and you just got to have speed and athleticism to do that. I believe if he has that in him. I don't know if he has that contact in him. But think about him. He runs. I mean, he runs as good as a lot of speed guys.
Tight end.
Yeah.
Defensive end. What do you think?
Yeah, it just all depends.
He's got a football neck, doesn't he?
Yeah, they don't play football in the Latin countries, so they're not used to the physical pounding, that you have to take. So that would be the only question, because he takes great routes out there in the outfield. I'd say tight end.
Just inside, and now all 6 innings tonight, the White Sox have had their leadoff man on. Second time they've had a leadoff walk. Our Honda most trusted players, Kelvin Herrera, 7 out of 7 in save opportunities. His ERA well below 1. And Matt Strom, 15 2/3 scoreless over his last 12.
Fastball, slider, changeup. Very effective with that heater.
Ball 1 to Narvaez, and Strom is saying, is that up? What was that pitch?
Borderline.
That's a strike, 1-1. One and 2.
It's a good spot there. Good catch.
Ball by him. Narvaez trying to put down a bunt to begin that at bat, strikes out. One on, one out. The next T-shirt Tuesday giveaway is with the Royals hosting the A's during the next homestand, and the first 10,000 fans through the gates receive this exclusive Bo Jackson T-shirt presented by Metropolitan Community Colleges. Tickets at Royals.com/T-shirt Tuesday. Tyler Saladino. Strom has really taken to the bullpen. His situation, however, is different from, say, Danny Duffy, who's been a starter, moved to the bullpen, went back to the starting rotation. Matt Strahm pitched mostly out of the bullpen in the Royals minor league system. He only started being used as a starter the second half of last year, and this year the Royals needed some help at the big league level. They wanted to be careful with his overall innings, as he had Tommy John surgery, Strahm did, and missed all of 2013. But coming out of the bullpen and being aggressive and coming right at the hitters, that's nothing new for him. That's how he started his professional career.
Yeah, and he needs to stay with it, especially that fastball.
The plan still for now is for him to go back to the rotation for next year. Dyson, long run. He's not going to get it. It bounces over the wall for a double.
Saladino, he passed up Cabrera.
Garcia.
Garcia.
So Garcia, was he going back to tag, thinking that Dyson was going to make the play?
Yes. Sure did. So Ned's going to have a little beef about that. Now, Dyson was playing into the opposite field. Had a long run, just bounced over him. Now see Garcia going back. Saladino passed him, and when that happens, usually it's an out.
The argument's going to be a dead ball once the timing of a dead ball and then passing each other on the bases.
It doesn't matter because it went into the stands. I'm sure of that. They'll call him up. Go ahead, call him up and make sure. Ned wants to see if they'll call him, just make sure. But
in fact, it looked like Garcia thought that Dyson made the play, because
he was all the way to second base.
Yeah, he had rounded second base, and he was touching up and heading back to first.
Yeah, and already re-tagged.
Ned asked that all the four umpires get together and talk over the timing of that play.
Okay, there's Dyson. This is it. Saladino thinks he caught it, so he's slowing down. And then Garcia's already gone back, but he'd already passed him.
Passing runners is a reviewable play.
So you got to credit Ned. I knew he'd say something about that, because we saw it up here, and I was watching Dyson thinking he was going to make that play. And by the time it bounced over, I saw Saladino at second and Garcia at first.
I think you can combine a couple of rules here for replay. I mentioned that passing runners is one. I would imagine that that would mean, did they pass each other or not, which they did. And then you could combine the placement of runners. That's new for this year. So this might be a combination of both, because Ned did not go out there and immediately say, I want you to look at it. I think the umpires had to get together and decide, is this in fact reviewable? And they agreed that it was, and that's when they went to the headsets.
So then will they give Garcia third?
And I think what the umpire's argument is, once it's a dead ball, the runners cannot decide where they want to go. They are assigned by the rule book where to go. So runner at first and a ground rule double or a rule book double. Runner at second base, runner at first goes to third. So if it's a dead ball, Avisail Garcia could run into right field if he wanted to, and they're going to say, nope, you got to go to third base.
Now imagine Garcia in shoulder pads. I can't get him out of there. Okay, what are they going to do?
They'll leave the runners where they were.
All right. Good try, Ned.
And with that signage board out in left center field, I think it was hard for Garcia to see the ball bounce. I think he just saw the ball disappear and headed back to first base.
Yeah, but you know, they're correct on the call. With that view right there, it had already bounced in the stands by the time they crossed.
Infield in, and upstairs to Adam Eaton. Eaton, up until this series, had done very little against the Royals. He has 2 hits and a run scored tonight, 2 hits and 2 runs scored last night. And Strom falls behind, 2 balls, no strikes. Two and 1.
Saladino, man, he's 8 for his last 11. He's on fire. Remember that error earlier on that he hit to Colon was changed to a hit.
Three and 1. Tim Anderson's on deck. Full count.
Eaton swinging a hot bat, but you got to challenge him here with that fastball. See what he can do with it. Maybe you pop him up in the infield. Or you get a strikeout.
Jammed him and he cracked his bat.
Nice pitch.
And now it's runners at second and third and a right-hand batter coming up. Ned Yost goes back to the bullpen. That was ball 4.
Yeah, but he got deep in that kitchen.
So Strom leaves 2 behind, and Kevin McCarthy with his second big league appearance, second and third, 2 out in a Chevy call to the bullpen.
Here, they're looking for Kevin McCarthy to retire the side here. Get that final out. Saw him last night, and what we saw was a heavy, heavy sinker. 92 to 95. What was there? He's got a slider and a changeup. Good competitor.
And this is the hitter that he faced last night, Tim Anderson.
Big opportunity for him.
That was in a 5-run game in the bottom of the 8th inning. Tonight, it's a 1-run game in the bottom of the 6th.
A little higher leverage situation. Anderson, he took that slider there. That was a pitch out over the middle, but that heavy sinker is nasty. Look at that. Anything at 95 that has that kind of sink, I call that a bowling ball sinker. It's heavy. It's heavy as a bowling ball. When a hitter hits it, it's off the end of the bat. Your hands sting, your whole arms.
2 balls, 2 strikes. You and I talked to him in Minnesota right after he was called up, and he has always been a contact pitcher. Going back to his college days, that's not something that he had to learn. A lot of times, you know, a guy with a big arm just strikes everybody out, and they have to learn to pitch to contact, but that's been his mindset since college. But he gets a strikeout. His first big league strikeout. Ho, ho, ho. Kevin McCarthy strands 2 in the 6th inning.
There you go, Matt.
It's Miller time, brought to you by Miller Lite.
Kevin McCarthy called on with runners at second and third, 2 outs to get the out, and he did. He got his first big league strikeout to the delight of his family. Look at them. Yeah, they are pumped. That's great. And she's got McCarthy written on Hosmer's jersey.
Chris Beck is on for the 7th inning. So it's a so-called quality start for James Shields. There were base runners all over the place for the Royals. But Shields gives up just 3 runs, 4 hits in 6 innings. And now Beck, and the Royals got to look at him, a glimpse of him. Last night he faced 2 batters. He faced Cuthbert and Kane in the top of the 7th inning, and here he is back in there in the top of the 7th inning. Escobar has walked and popped out to second base. changeup, and that was a swing. It's always been his best pitch, his changeup, and he can thank his dad for that. You know, there's a belief that you don't want to throw curveballs until a pitcher's arm matures physically. So sometimes a dad will say, you're not throwing any curveballs until you're 15 years old or 16 years old or whatever. Well, that's what happened with Chris Beck. His dad said no breaking balls. Fastball, changeup only. Colon is on with 1 out. Chris is 1 for 3 tonight. And he will throw his changeup when he's playing long toss. Never heard of that before.
I have either. That's...
And he throws a hard one. That changeup to strike out Escobar was a 90-mile-an-hour changeup. So thank you, Dad.
Yeah, and you know, he's like McCarthy. He's got a heavy, hard sinker. Low to mid-90s.
Terrence Gore will run for Colon with 1 out in the 7th inning. Had 3 stolen bases last night. They were 3 out of 3 in stolen base attempts. They have not attempted a stolen base tonight, and all 3 of those attempts last night were against tonight's catcher Narvaez.
He looked like he was leaning. Narvaez, he's looking in that White Sox dugout to Rick Renteria, who usually calls the throwovers and also pitch outs. You could try a pitch out, but you got to be perfect. It doesn't matter. You got to be perfect with the throw. Because Gore, it's never been thrown out.
I talk about the base runner holding on to his batting gloves.
Now, a lot of guys do that because it keeps them from putting their hands down when they slide, and he goes in awfully hard feet first. So you put those batting gloves in your hand, it keeps you from planting your hands and jamming them.
Because you have to hold on to the batting gloves. The goal is not to drop the batting gloves.
That's right. And some guys use a sliding guard. You see Alex put a guard on over there for guys that drag their hand. And it could cause trouble. You could sprain your wrist. But he goes in so late at the bag.
So you're landing on your knuckles like you're punching the ground instead of on your palm.
The ideal is to throw both hands up. That's what it is. That's the idea. That's what you want to do. But sometimes, you know, when you're bearing down on that bag and your focus is on that base while you're en route, a lot of things can change. You're just trying to get there. You're reading the guy who's covering the bag. You're reading him, his eyes, where he's going to throw, how you're going to slide. It all happens so quickly.
I don't even know if Chris Beck is aware that Gerard Dyson's at the plate right now. I mean, all of his attention is on Gore.
Well, he knows he's going to go.
Dyson could probably go back to the dugout and get a drink of water if he wanted to.
Beck's saying we give the signs, but look, you better just throw a fastball up there if you want any chance to throw him out.
Not going, and the White Sox pitch out.
He's trying to help Narvaez out, who is 0 for 10 this year at throwing runners out.
Dyson choking up on the bat.
And Dyson's probably telling Narvaez, pitch out, you can't get him anyway. Might as well give me a fastball down the middle. Let me rip it. That's what Dyson's looking for here. Look for that heater. Turn on it.
And And they pitch out again. Now Beck maybe hurting himself a little bit here. Now Gore can run on anybody.
Exactly.
But he's quick to the plate. So if Gore's not going to get any kind of a jump, he's not going to go.
That's right.
I mean, if you want a runner to go, you got to make it enticing to go. Sometimes when a pitcher goes to the slide step, the runner's not going to go. But if you pitch out, you're not just wasting pitches. You want him to run.
No, in this situation here, Beck needs to focus on what he's doing and not worry about the run. Hey, go ahead and throw him a strike, because this could get him into trouble, because he's going to steal second, and then he might just steal third. Don't even worry about it. The hitter's the one who can hurt you. So now he's off kilter. It's messed him up. But that's what that Terrence Gore can do. He impacts games. Tremendous weapon. We haven't seen any other teams that have a weapon like this. And believe me, the Royals, their style has been copied by a lot of teams this year we've seen.
Going on 3-0. Anderson may have injured his left hand. Gore, who slides in feet first, went right into Anderson's hand or wrist or thumb.
And goes in hard. I've talked about it. I've talked to Terrence a few times about, man, you make me nervous. You know, if you catch a spike on that bag the way you're going full speed, you know, you could twist an ankle or something. He just looked at me and said, hey, look, I'm going to get to the base. Now, when you're fielding a ball like this, you want to try to catch it and get it out of the way, but
well, it hit his body. It didn't hit his foot.
Let's check out his glove hand now. He's going for the ball. And just bent back.
How about Gore going on 3-0?
Exactly. We talked about that. He's going to steal the base no matter what you do, even on the pitch out. This could be really bad.
Joel.
Monty and I interviewed Terrence Gore the other day, and he said that he knows that he should start that slide a little bit earlier, but he said he has nightmares. He's had dreams of that not working out well for him, and that he does slide late. His biggest goal is to stay on the bag after what happened in the playoffs last year in Houston. And he said anytime something like this happens, he immediately gets up to make sure that infielder is okay. He's not trying to hurt anyone, but I think what we're dealing with here is someone that has such ridiculous speed. It's really hard for him to slow down.
Yeah, and Anderson just couldn't get his glove out in front of him, but it's good to see him still in the game.
So that's 3 games shy of the franchise record. 14 in a row, which they did twice under Whitey Herzog back in 1976. Tying run scoring position and a good hitters count for Dyson. And now Dyson walks.
Okay, now your heads up for the double steal.
You got a right-hand batter coming up.
That's right. Brady, the first baseman, will play off of Dyson, so he'll just keep his eye on Gore.
That might be what Saladino came into. Tell Beck, hey, just because we have runners at first and second right now, you know, keep an eye on the runners. We got 2 of the fastest guys in the league on the bases.
Right. Good for Merrifield. Get him a fastball he can hit. He hopes.
Ryan inside, ball 1. Witt is 0 for 3. One of his outs was a drive to the warning track in right field. Going to the opposite field. That was against Shields in the 3rd inning. Off speed and a strike, 1-1. Vote for the Royals Player of the Month at one of the 7 Rally House locations in the KC metro area. All participants will be entered to win a majestic prize pack. Saladino is trying to keep Gore close, but Merrifield has the ability to hit the other way, so he doesn't want to give up too much ground.
Saladino looked at Beck and just said, go ahead, get the hitter.
There they go. And it's lined to the gap. Whit Merrifield is going to drive in 2. And the Royals have reclaimed the lead.
Well, not only is that's what speed do, but it gives that hitter a good pitch to hit, a fastball. Now they were running on the pitch, and Whit focused on the ball and placed it nicely in the left center field gap for his 17th double. Timely, track meet breaking out.
Might want to water down that baseline.
Look, that would have been a double steal had Whit not hit it, but we need to drive him in. Whitley coming through for the club. Yeah.
Another pitching change for the White Sox. With 1 out, the Royals get a base hit from Christian Colon. Gore runs for him, steals second. Dyson walks, and Whit Merrifield doubles in 2. The Royals are back out to a 1-run lead, and Dan Jennings is on for a 2nd straight game. He was very effective last night, going an inning and 2/3 without allowing a hit and striking out 3.
He pitched the best I've seen him pitch last night. Fastball slider. Oz, he'll tell you, he's tough. Just 1 hit.
Jennings got Hosmer to ground into a force out last night. Set up way inside, and it's lined to center field. 1 hop to Eaton, who has all those outfield assists. Good decision by Mike Jershely to hold Merrifield at 3rd. Man, that was a laser beam to center field. 1st and 3rd with 1 out.
Well, there's his 2nd hit, And he guessed right. Poor man, chuck and duck. That ball was in the outfield in 1 second. You're going to see it hit off of the mound, the side of the mound there. It caused a little problem for Narvaez.
And up comes Morales, who has driven in 12 on this road trip. 10 in the 3-game series in Minnesota, 2 last night. He has reached all 3 times he's come to the plate tonight, with an infield single of all things and 2 walks. Last night against Jennings, he struck out.
That hit speed had to be well over 100. We don't have it for you, but don't need it. Don't need it. That ball he was right on it. I mean, barreled it.
And it's 0-2. Last night in the first inning against the lefty Carlos Rodon, Morales changed his approach. Wasn't wailing away, just tried to make contact with 2 strikes and poked it into right field for a couple of RBIs.
He has that ability. We did get the hit speed, by the way, 108 off of Hosmer's bat. Smoking.
And 2. So you're wrong. It wasn't 100 miles an hour.
No, I said it's well over. It had to be. We told you the other day, you know, being on the other side of that, being out there in the infield, those balls come out there, you always knew when they were really hit hard, but you never knew until the modern technology. They got hit speeds out. It's good to put a number on it.
By Narvaez. Hosmer made a move to second base. He'll hold. We were discussing this last night about Jennings. And I'll bet it's part of his plan that he comes set and waits until, I'll bet, what he believes is the moment right before the hitter is going to call time, and then he pitches.
With that fast, herky-jerky coming out of that stretch position, he comes out quick. The ball's on you in a heartbeat, so he's using that. That's part of his deception. Here comes a heater.
Anderson falling backward. They get the out at second base, but no double play. The 3-run 7th inning, and the Royals lead by 2. Morales almost hit it through Anderson.
It almost knocked him into left field. We got 2 hitters now that have just barreled Jennings. He hit it so hard he couldn't make an accurate throw. Oh, really? You know what? I credit Anderson. Well, so when those rockets are hit at you, you just hope you get the glove up in time to protect yourself. And at least he got it out. Credit to him. Another hard hit ball, not a hit by Morales.
Curveball's outside. Salvi back in the lineup tonight after missing 2 games. He is 0 for 3. Had a tough night against James Shields. 2 strikeouts, and he grounded into a double play.
All right, are you ready for this hit speed on that ball that Morales just hit at him? 110. 2 more miles per hour than Hosmer's ball. And the kid Anderson turned it into a marshmallow. Good for him.
It's not a good thing for a pitcher when it's going out faster than it's going in.
No, it's not.
110.
Well, the average is in the mid-70s for hit speed. So that little dribbler he got for a base hit earlier down that line, he'll take it.
And he's driven in 13 on this road trip, and this is just game number 5. Outside, 2-1.
Let's take a look at that play in slow motion, if we can. There it is. All right, he knows he's in trouble. He's already backing up because it's hit so hard, and then the momentum of that carry and the fact that he was backing up on his heels knocked him into left field.
Three and one.
So the reaction time for Anderson on that ball hit at 110 was 1 second. And by the time he could get his glove up, he already knew, oh, blank, it's coming right at me. So he just did all he could to save himself. All right, now they're getting back into their bullpen.
Three and two. All 3 runs are charged to Chris Beck, who started this inning. But what started the rally, I think, would be Gore distracting Beck.
Totally.
That was a focused pitcher jogging from the left field bullpen to the mound, who quickly lost his focus. He struck out Escobar to begin the inning. Then Colon singled, and when Gore ran for Colon, the inning changed. That's fouled away by Perez, and he cracked his bat.
Now you're exactly right. Whenever Terrence Gore comes in, it's Gore to score for sure, but you know he's going to steal, and everybody else in the park knew he was going to. And then when you could pull that off, that makes you in a special league by yourself.
Daniel Nava saying, so tell me, what does that feel like? He's a great guy. Daniel Nava.
Yeah.
I had a chance to talk with him yesterday, and his story. That will be a Disney movie at some point. The Daniel Nava story.
Well, when he gets back out there, you'll need to tell him.
Morales runs, and Salvi grounds it out to Anderson. And that is the inning.
Yeah, Santa like that. There he goes. That's what I'm talking about. Gore to score, and a track meet broke out. Whitley, gap up. That away, boys.
Baseball is brought to you by the Missouri Lottery. Every ticket you play gives back to schools across Missouri, so play it forward with the Missouri Lottery. By Menards, save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And by your Midwest Ford dealers. Visit your MidwestFordDealers.com. Whit Merrifield drives in 2 of the Royals' 3 runs in the 7th inning. Chesler Cuthbert takes over at third base as Gore ran for Colon. Colon was the starter at third. And Kelvin Herrera comes on for the 7th.
Okay.
With the middle of the order coming up.
No. Middle of the order. Ed says, all right, we're going to bring out one of our best guys out there. And maybe ask him to go. Inning and a half.
That's to the gap. Alex over from left. That ball had a lot of slice on it, which helped Alex. But still getting a good break and running into left center field to take a hit away from Melky Cabrera. Alex has been all over the place tonight, as he normally is.
Stayed with it nicely.
So 2 pitches. And now Abreu. Ball 1 outside. Important game for the Royals as they're running out of time. 4 games back in the wild card. And to this point, it would appear that 4 of the 5 teams ahead of the Royals in the wild card are going to win. New York has 1. Seattle has 1. Houston has 1.
Baltimore's up on Detroit. Big in the 8th inning, 11-2. But wild card, yeah. Hard to control the board, but you can control what you're doing. Loved that last inning by the Royals. Last half was tremendous.
Tyson makes a play on Abreu. And they're 2 down. Speaking of that Oriole-Tiger game, a premier Mazda of Overland Park game break. That's a Chris Davis home run. That is his 37th of the year. Hit it off of Jordan Zimmerman, who gave up 6 runs in 1 inning, including 3 home runs.
Ouch.
So 11-2 Baltimore in the bottom of the 8th.
Well, that little section right there looks like that's McCarthy's family there. A little bit of excitement going on right now. That Kevin is in line for a W if the Royals bullpen can hold him off.
So Baltimore with a chance to take a 1-game lead. It's pretty good. Come in and face 1 batter, get a strikeout, and get your first big league win. But that was a big out. Low leverage situation for his debut last night. And then a high leverage situation to get the final out tonight. Morneau is late.
He might have just earned him another opportunity. That situation. That's what you do when a manager puts you out there. You hear managers, Ned Yost, a lot of them say, well, we don't know what we're getting from this guy. He's never played up here before. We're not really sure. Well, it's up to the young player to go out there and say, all right, I'm going to slow the game down, pretend like it's minor league ball or backyard ball, whatever. I'm just going to get the job done here so I can stay in the big leagues. No fear. That's why Strom's here. He showed Ned that in spring training. This spring, he goes, Ned said, wow, I saw this kid was fearless. It's called seizing the moment. Ooh.
12-pitch inning.
Yeah, we'll see him again, possibly. Ooh, changeup, beautiful.
He is the subject of our sprint trivia question. Gerard has 5 seasons of 25 or more stolen bases. There are 3 Royals who have had 6 or more seasons of 25 or more stolen bases. We have Willie Wilson. We have Amos Otis.
And you got it all. You got the trifecta. You got Freddie Patek.
Freddie Patek.
You were trying to be a nice guy saying, Hud, you say it. I go, no, you guessed him. You take it.
I thought Johnny Damon was a good call.
I thought it was too. Hang with him.
Willie Wilson, 11.
Stallion.
Dan Jennings and Alex Gordon. Last night, Jennings struck out Alex. So Alex gets another shot tonight. 1 for 3 with a line drive home run to right in the 4th inning. Hit it off the end of the bat. And Garcia waits and makes the play.
Fans, every weekday morning, Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp go head-to-head on the day's hottest sports topics. Undisputed with Skip and Shannon. Weekdays at 8:30 a.m. only on FS. Baseball is brought to you by your local Kansas City area Chevy dealers. Visit us for great prices on the all-new 2016 Malibu. By Panera Bread, food as it should be, with 24 Kansas City metro locations. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors, right stuff, low price, every day.
Juan Minaya comes on with 1 out, nobody on. 3 games, 4 innings, 4 strikeouts, 3 walks. So a lot of non-contact plate appearances. Paulo is grounded out to the second baseman Saladino 3 times. Didn't mean to, and he's down 0-2. Paulo had it safely in his 7 prior games to tonight. Still 0-2. Royals had a 2-0 lead. They had a 3-1 lead. The White Sox ended up taking the lead away from the Royals in the 5th inning. The White Sox had a 4-3 lead after the bottom of the 5th inning, and the Royals scored 3 against the White Sox bullpen in the 7th. No swing. Jim Reynolds says so at first base.
Minaya, good fastball, low to mid-90s. Curveball we just saw there. Changeup.
Originally from the Astros organization. Juan Minaya from the Dominican Republic. Still 1-2. Look out. 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Yeah, you know, before the game, talking with Donnie Cooper, pitching coach for the White Sox, about James Shields, he says, we don't know what we're going to get. He's either good or bad, but he went 6 innings today. He says we have the bullpen all prepared if he can't get out of the 1st or 2nd inning. So he's got to feel good about James Shields and what he did today.
Minaya gets a strikeout, and there are 2 down. Problem for the White Sox tonight has been the problem for them against the Royals all year. It's their bullpen, and they are now 3 out of 10 in save opportunities against the Royals. Escobar is 0 for 2 with a walk. Slider for strike 1. Cabrera came in, and now he backs up, and he's got it. Minaya gets the final 2 outs. We go to the bottom of the 8th. The Royals lead by 2. by 2 to the bottom of the 8th inning. And a little switch here. Instead of Joakim Soria in the 7th and Kelvin Herrera in the 8th, it's Soria pitching the 8th inning. Tough hop for Cuthbert. He guns it across the diamond to get Frazier. So with the way Soria has been struggling, I would assume that Ned Yost in his so-called mixing and matching is now looking at who's coming up in the batting order, and that's going to dictate where he's going to use Kelvin Herrera.
Absolutely. That's why Herrera, we saw him in the 7th. The meat of their order was up. Wasn't going to subject Joakim Soria in that situation, so he holds off till they get down to the bottom 3rd. Now, there's no guarantees that those guys can't hurt you down there, but this is a good spot for him. He's on 2 days rest. Fastball, slider, change, curve, occasional split finger change.
And that's the new plan for Soria, is to avoid pitching him in back-to-back days. And the numbers say that he is most effective when he has 1 and 2 days rest.
Numbers are a big part of this game of baseball, but to players, not so much. Players, sometimes you go up to them and tell them a number, they have no idea what you're talking about. They're so focused on performing and doing their thing out there that, you know, there's a big slow curve.
Two down.
Good spot. He took something off.
Royals alumni batting practice at Kauffman Stadium is back. You can join Royals alumni as you take batting practice on the field, just like the pros. The cost is $300. You must be 25 years or older to participate. You receive a t-shirt and shorts along with an autographed baseball by the alumni who attend. Saturday, September 24th, 9 a.m. to noon or 1 p.m. to 4. So 2 slots on September 24th, 9 a.m. to noon or 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Royals alumni batting practice.
Wonder if Monty's a part of that.
Negative. 0-2 on Narvaez.
I wouldn't want to face him either. Last time I faced Monty at the Little K, he drilled me right in the leg.
Didn't you know what was coming?
No. We were doing
You weren't able
demo.
to do any lip reading? And
No, because there was no pitching coach. We were doing a little demo for Joel in his pregame show. And can't say I blame him. Monty drilled me.
1-2 on Narvaez.
But there will be nobody getting drilled at the alumni batting practice. You hope. And it won't hurt because these guys ain't going to throw that hard.
Soria gets the job done. 3 up, 3 down with 2 strikeouts.
Nice slow breaker.
Let's see what's going on around the league. Houston beats Chicago 2-1. Toronto over Boston. Melvin Upton had a big home run in that game. Yankees beat Tampa Bay. And Detroit is trailing in the bottom of the ninth against Baltimore. Seattle also won, so mostly bad news for the Royals in the wild card, 4 games back. Bad news as far as gaining some ground. Baltimore and Detroit were tied for the wild card, so Baltimore is out away from having a 1-game lead, and the Royals keeping pace at 4.
That's why it's so important for the Royals. Every win.
Blake Smith making his big league debut. Coming over to the White Sox from the Padres, drafted by the Dodgers, then to the Padres, and to the White Sox in the minor league Rule 5 draft. And he'll get Cuthbert, Dyson, and Merrifield.
Big fastball curve change.
One and two on Cuthbert, batting for the first time. Two and two. One hop to Frazier at third. Blake Smith actually started his career as an outfielder. Outfielder in the Dodgers organization, 4 seasons. And in one of those seasons, he had 20 home runs. But if there was one position the Dodgers were loaded, it would be the outfield. And so with a strong arm and the clock ticking, he moved to pitcher. From the Dodgers to the White Sox. And then the Padres were the ones that took him in the Rule 5 draft and then returned him back to the White Sox.
I believe he made the right decision, because look, it's tough to be a position player, but to be a pitcher, if you have stuff, you can climb the ladder. And look at him, he's low to mid 90s with that fastball, and he's got a pretty good hook.
Yeah, just his 4th year as a pitcher.
But to play 4 years in minor league ball before you make that switch is pretty impressive.
Had a 19 home run season in the minor leagues, a 20 home run season.
Wow.
13 home run season. Dyson is out. 2 up, 2 down.
Watch the drive to the pennant with MLB.TV Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service. Watch every out-of-market regular season game live at home and in the office or on the go. MLB.TV Premium includes a free subscription to At Bat Premium, the #1 app for live baseball. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch-by-pitch tracking, and more. Blackouts and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.com TV today.
Merrifield pops it up into shallow right. He drove in 2 runs in the Royals' 3-run 7th inning. So Blake Smith has an impressive big league debut. And now it's Wade Davis in the bottom of the 9th. The Royals lead by 2.
Take a couple yellow hammers on the side and choose to go.
lead by 2. And tonight's copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Kansas City Royals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. The accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Kansas City Royals Baseball Club. 3 outs away. Kevin McCarthy and his family can celebrate his first big league victory.
They are all sitting on the edge of their seats. Well, you know what? I just figured it out. Those are all of his brothers and sisters up there. Remember how many? Remember I asked him, how many siblings do you have? Just, you know, out of curiosity. He said 9. Well, you and I went, whoa. He asked me what religion he was. We weren't sure.
Well, you suggested one,
okay,
which I won't repeat.
All right.
And he said, no, actually, Irish Catholic.
There they are. That explains it. I was wondering, you know, where's Dad? Where's Mom?
They're tired, man. That's where they are.
They're excited for their brother.
Fouled off of Salvi's mask. Salvi nods his head and says he's fine. 1 ball, 2 strikes on Tyler Saladino. Royals took the lead tonight against the White Sox bullpen. The Royals bullpen, on the other hand, has turned in 3 scoreless innings. Strom, McCarthy, Herrera, and Soria.
Fastball, overhand curve cutter from the waiter.
Wilson cuts it off.
You can't contain this guy right here. And he's like Dozier, but he didn't hit home runs. 9 for 12. 9 for his last 12. Beautiful swing. Short, compact, stayed inside the ball.
So the tying run at the plate with nobody out. The left field line and fair. Saladino is held at third, and the White Sox have runners at second and third and nobody out. That is the second double tonight and the 4th double for Adam Eaton in the first 2 games of the series.
Okay, now Saladino and Eaton are hot. Now that's a fastball down. Both pitches were out over the middle of the plate, but well struck. Davis usually on the corners and down further with his cutter. Joe McEwen, third base coach, said, you know what? There's nobody out. We got the meat of our order coming up. No need in getting it out there. Escobar throwing somebody out.
Alcides Escobar was playing in. And Salvador Perez called time as he was about to give the sign to Wade Davis. He noticed that Escobar was on the edge of the grass. He said, whoa, wait a minute. Got a 2-run game here. We're not worried about Saladino at third.
Yeah, Wade's got to start pitching.
Cutters outside to Anderson. Fouled it off the plate, and it's 1 ball, 1 strike.
Okay, Davis, he likes to use the upper part of the strike zone. He likes to come up there around the letters. And the breaker was not in the middle there. It was off the plate. That was good, but it still was up. He likes to finish that pitch down.
Wade is perfect in save opportunities against the White Sox the last 2 years. Fastball by him at 97.
There you go. I see a little velo by him there. He didn't have that on the base hit to Saladino. And to Eaton, he humped up a little bit. Great spot.
Got him. Salvi checks third, completes the strikeout. Very defensive swing there by Anderson with the count. 1 ball, 2 strikes. That pitch reached home plate.
No, but see, that's where he likes to finish guys off at. You know, so him being up in the zone a little bit with some of those pitches is not the way Davis that we're used to seeing. He came back there, and he's got to come back again. Melky Cabrera. Tough out. Wade hasn't had any issues with him. 2 for 13. 4 punch outs.
He has driven in a run tonight. And he's driven in 13, Cabrera has, in 14 games with the Royals this year, even though he's hitting around 240.
So runner at second base. You know, Salvi's got to shake up the cadence and the signal giving back there. Sometimes hard to get on the same page. You hope not. In this situation here, nice pitch. Burying that big hook. And it's a straight down, 12-6 on the clock. Comes out belt high.
Still 0-2.
It's a nice pitch, up and away. Sets up a cutter in. Davis likes to finish a lot of left-handers off of that cutter inside, but you got to make sure it stays in.
Try to get him with a fastball up. 1-2. So that's back-to-back fastballs up. Royals are trying to even the series after the White Sox won last night 7-2. Still 1-2. Didn't quite get that down as he wanted to.
No, and what worries me is that Melky's such a good hitter that he's not trying to do anything but just lob it out there. He's just not over swinging. He's just going to try to barrel it up and find a hole. Needs a strikeout here in a big way.
Over Davis, cut off by Escobar. A throw back to third, and they almost got eaten. So it's a 1-run game. Escobar saves the lead, at least for the time being, and almost got Adam Eaton rounding third base.
Yep, that's what I was just talking about. Melky, he's not up there trying to do anything but just put the bat on the ball, and that's what he did. If the curveball was down, it's almost on the ground. Escobar, his great range kept this game from being tied up. They could have attempt there. Eaton goes back. He goes down that line. One more step, they might have gotten him.
J.B. Shuck is going to run for Melky Cabrera.
That was an excellent piece of hitting there by Melky.
I think Davis and Perez put that pitch exactly where they wanted it on Melky Cabrera. It was a strikeout type pitch. Cutter is outside. He hasn't. That's the one pitch in this inning that he hasn't been able to put where he wants to so far.
You know, and I was calling for the cutter in. I think that's the one that could have gotten Melky. It was in on his hands. He would have been swinging. But they made a good pitch. And he topped it. Down the hole.
2-0. 2-1. Not about to throw one right down the middle to Abreu with the count 2 balls, no strikes.
Nope, you can't. You just got to battle through this. Davis has the ability.
Two and two.
Another good breaking ball down, but I tell you, the White Sox, they're not missing them. You know, they're just kind of trying to fling the, taking easy swings out there. That's the right approach against the closer.
There's the fastball, and he throws it right by him.
Yeah. Waiter says, all right, enough of that finesse stuff. I'm a closer, and I'm going to show you what I got. Right down the middle. Split the dish in two. That's what the breaking balls do. Little cutters away, gets the hitter thinking about those pitches. And forget about that straight heater. This will be a really good test here.
These are all numbers for Morneau, and Wade Davis was a starter. Oh, 1.
The cutter.
There's the tying run at third base, Eaton. He is there because of the play by Escobar on the ground ball from Cabrera.
Now, if you didn't have as good a hitter as Morneau is up there, they would think about maybe a double steal here with 2 outs. To try to tie it. He's got the right guys out there. But I'm not going to do that here.
Oh, 2. Coming up after the game, Boulevard Royals Live with Joel and Monty. Kevin McCarthy, family and friends. You know that if Wade Davis can get one more strike, Kevin in his second major league appearance will get his first big league win. We got the final out at the bottom of the 6th inning, and then the Royals took the lead in the top of the 7th. 0-2 on Morneau. Just outside, and Salvi tried to pull it into the strike zone. It buckled Morneau.
Sure did. Good spot.
Shuck runs. scrambling to get that ball, knowing that Eaton has the mindset to come down from third base. So now the potential winning run is in scoring position.
Look at Salvi, how he squares that ball up on his chest protector. Taking a peek in right away. Saying, are you coming? That would have been a tester. Eaton runs well. Salvi would have had to pick it up, go back and make the tag. McCarthy's looking for a strikeout. Waiter, check please. The McCarthys are not going to sleep tonight. Way to go, Dice. Gordo popped a nice home run tonight. His 15th. Yeah, that's always a great sight. Whitley would have split the gap and score the 2 runs. This was awesome. Now Waiter, he finished him off with that great heater. Heater, that's sneaky, especially when you have that yellow hammer. And there's the McCarthy family. It's on.
That sums it up for all of us. He had him all the way. And with that win, the Royals are 10-4 against the White Sox this year with 4 to go. So that's another winning season for the Royals. 6 consecutive winning seasons against the Chicago White Sox. Royals had never had more than 2 consecutive winning series before this season series, before this streak began. Exciting finish. Come from behind victory for the Royals. Fueled in part by a big hit from Whit Merrifield. He's down on the field with Joel.
Ryan, thank you very much. What a big hit for Whit in the 7th inning. First off, before I ask you about Terrence Gore, let me just ask you about the hit and the approach at that point, giving the team the lead.
Yeah, he, we had a scouting report on him, and he threw me 3 split fingers in a row and left the third one up a little bit, and I got the barrel on it and found the gap. It's not hard to put it somewhere where those guys will score when they're on base.